So thank you, everyone. Can we all hear it? Can we all hear? No, okay, we can in a minute. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been a bit like Napoleon's retreat from Moscow. We get fewer and fewer people every time. so congratulations for getting this far. And I just want to echo what Phil said earlier. I've had a great time, and my iPad's been full of notes. So that's always a good thing, isn't it? And I'm really glad that we've got amazing. The other thing is I think someone said it before is what's really good about this conference in particular is travel loyalty is not easy. It really isn't easy. And in fact, loyalty is not easy, but travel loyalty particularly. So what I like about this conference is it feels half the time more like a self-help group than it does a loyalty conference. But welcome to our self-help group. So I'm joined by some brilliant panelists today. So first of all, Kelly Best from Virgin Group. Hello. Is it from Virgin Red or Virgin Group?
Well, a bit of both. So we are a group-wide loyalty solution for Virgin Group. So we've got the pleasure of trying to connect the 45 Virgin companies across multiple geographies and various sectors to bring together the 35 million customers who choose Virgin. So it is a bit like herding cats, I'm not going to lie, but it's fun every day.
And Joel Hanley from Mastercard.
Hi, good to be here.
And which bit of Mastercard? There's lots of parts of Mastercard that do loyalty, so which bit are you?
Yeah, it's a huge topic at Mastercard. I sit in the consulting practice, so I head up the European loyalty consulting practice at Mastercard.
And Simon Tavernier from Stampix.
Hi, good to be here.
Now, is it Tavernier? How do you say it? How would your friends say it?
It's a French name, so Tavernier is the most commonly used, but Tavernier, as you wish.
Well, I mean, AI never gets my name, and most overseas call centres again struggle with that. So I'm Iain Pringle from New World Loyalty, and so just today we've had brief introductions, but can you talk about what we're going to talk about today on this panel particularly is how to improve member engagement through gamification, experiences, and sustainability. So basically, the things beyond status and points. We talked about status and points a lot, so now we're going to do how can we engage customers beyond status and points. And if ever, I'm going to have a buzzer. If we mention status or points, then I'll hit a buzzer, and we'll not talk about that again. So Kelly, do you want to talk about what your experience is on engaging customers beyond status and points?
Well, I didn't get the brief that the points weren't part of this conversation. I definitely don't want to talk about status anymore. But yeah, so I think for us, we are, as I said, a group-wide loyalty solution that's sitting above the Virgin Companies recognition programs with the ambition of connecting an ecosystem of customers globally. And we are using points to do that. And we are in our infancy, if I'm really honest. Although we've been in business for the last couple of years, we've got lots of companies that are at different stages of their evolution with their loyalty relationship. And so I think where we're at the moment is that we are quite functional and quite transactional. And we don't actually have the sort of full complement of Virgin companies as it stands today. By the end of this year, it will be very different. And we are a currency-based program, but we have grand aspirations to be much more than that, to bring in sort of gamification and goal setting and really using the data to drive behavioural rewards and actions, and going above currency to be bringing the best of Virgin through cash-based offers as well to our members. So what you see from Virgin Red today is very much not where we want to be in the next 3 years, but on a journey to build a more emotional relationship with customers, notwithstanding the fact that we have been there before, where we've just focused with a previous program that we had, which was Virgin Red 1.0, where it was all about gamification.
Virtually entirely about gamification.
Entirely about gamification, and actually forgot it needed to make money. So actually, if I had some of those elements now and could put them into where we are, we would have the perfect marriage. So I think the key is making sure that you've got a program that's financially sustainable and then building on it to have those more gamification and emotional mechanics that can hook customers in.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And how about Mastercard? How about your experience?
Yeah, so I think it's a conversation that I'm hearing a lot at the moment when I speak to clients is, we have a really transactional program, and it engages with people from a rational point of view, but it's kind of a bit of a race to the bottom in that sense. You're offering financial incentives, and somebody else can copy that really easily. So a lot of clients that I speak to are thinking, how do I actually make that more experiential and build that emotional engagement? And I think it's under-tapped, right? I think there's a lot that is still left on the table in that space. I think travel has a natural advantage there, because typically when you travel, you're traveling for an experience, unless you're a business traveler. So customers are already in that mindset. So if you can enhance that experience, then you're onto a good thing.
Do you think there's a gap that's been left because of interchange being lost in the EU, where you had a lot of experiential cards and charity cards and much more softer cards that just disappeared from the market? Do you think there's a gap there, or do you think that particular niche didn't really exist?
I think there's a gap there. You've got to balance what's right for the customer and what's right financially.
I mean, clearly financially it wouldn't work, right? but I think it left. What those things did is it gave banking a softer edge. Yeah. Whereas now it's all hard edge.
So we do it at Mastercard through the scheme.
Yeah.
So we have Priceless, which is one of our solutions. It's all about experiential loyalty. As a member of Mastercard, as a Mastercard holder, you can access Priceless and get access to those experiences. But I think you're right. It's in America you see a lot more co-brand cards that are, more valuable, frankly, because they have more interchange to play with.
Yeah. And Simon, this is right in your hitting zone. So.
Yeah, that's true. But maybe first for background, because Stampix isn't as known as Mastercard or Virgin. So we're a photo printing company, and many people probably are wondering, like, what does photo printing have to do with loyalty programs? Think about your members, especially your leisure members. They're going on holiday. They probably at best like your loyalty program, but what they really care about is their experiences. And what do they do on those experiences? They take photos. And that's actually what Stampix can do, is connect those photos or allow brands to tap into those personal moments, turn them into a tangible, printed brand memory. And sort of to explain it, you can find these boxes in front of you at the moment. They contain a little chocolate if you're still hungry. They've got some samples, but more importantly, they also have 5 case studies that relate to loyalty. So there's cases in travel, but also FMCG, that show you that through those personal photos, you can actually drive real value for the business, going from first-party data, points redemption, and especially member engagement, which is the topic we're discussing today.
Is the Spotify example in there?
I'm not sure if it's in there, but that's one inspired by you.
It's just we'll talk about that again. So what are the challenges about engaging? We've talked about the challenges of engaging frequent and less frequent travellers. Now, I think we've probably done frequent travellers to death already so far, unless anyone wants to cover that again. But can we talk about less frequent travellers? Because particularly, is Virgin Red particularly aimed at less frequent travellers, or is it? Or how does that relationship with Virgin Atlantic go, and where do you say your key role?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So it's sort of our role to turn the everyday into the extraordinary, and overlay onto the frequent flyer program by giving the red tier, particularly for Virgin Atlantic, more ways to earn every day that they can save up, not just to spend on the airline, but on the ecosystem as a whole. And so I know that we're not meant to be talking about points, but some of the ways that we really need to engage customers by giving them more frequent ways to engage in the currency. We've talked about that a lot today, but 2 of the real world ways that we've been doing it. One is that we built our own train ticketing solution, which is a bit of a competitor of Trainline. So we can reward customers for doing their daily commute. And actually that has been hugely successful and has a plus 45 NPS with customers, because we're rewarding people for something they're doing every day and something that they begrudge paying for. So we've seen some real positivity with that. And I know, again, we've talked about co-brand cards to death, but we like to think about the one that we're launching in the US in September as quite different, because it is bringing together the best of Virgin. And I think we're in a really unique position where we've got 99% global brand awareness. We're renowned for fun and innovation. So when you put the Virgin logo on stuff, it sort of gives that edge. And so we're bringing together the first co-brand card in the US of its kind, where it will be a points-based card, but with unique benefits and rewards linked to Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Voyages, and Virgin Hotels. And they're experiential benefits, upgrades, which we really believe will be successful in the market.
Yeah. And Joel, so can you think of examples where in cards, not just your card, but other cards, where you can get into this either gamification or experiential or other things that have worked?
So I don't really work on the card side of the business.
Okay.
I'm much more on the kind of consulting side of the business, working with merchants.
Yeah.
To help them design their loyalty programs. But what I would add to what you were saying about the currency, and I know we're not supposed to be talking about currency, is how do you...
I should have brought that back.
That was in the news like 5 minutes ago.
But how do you do what you're talking about, more frequent engagement, but on the redemption side as well? Particularly for airline, hotel, where customers are becoming less frequent. Can you have those milestones where customers can actually see some benefit from the loyalty program in between the big redemptions? I think that's a key topic within the industry at the moment.
And Kelly, going back, I know you said that you're trying to bridge this gap between what you were doing before, which is all engagement and no substance.
Yeah.
We can say that now. And now it's points, but not perhaps you're trying to do. Are there any things that things like reverse auctions? You mentioned it with Starwood. I mean, were you there? Can you give some experience of that?
I wasn't there at the time, but I knew that was a hugely popular feature where, I think customers were bidding for prizes and redemptions and stuff like that. There was also other neat gamified elements such as This or That, which is a really quick fire questionnaire that went to customers in a really gamified, fun way, which basically captured zero-party data that we could use then to personalise the experience. People were coming in their droves daily to play games. Hundreds of thousands a week would come to play games. And they were very, very disgruntled when we took them out of the programme and made it a currency-based programme. But I do think it's striking that balance. You need to have the backbone to drive the money, but people do want to engage with a bit of fun every now and then. As long as you've got the substance, I think that's key.
If people don't know about this and that, it's a piece of work of loyalty genius, okay? Every day they just ask things like cats or dogs. And then the next day they'd say things like yellow or blue. And the next day they'd say, and it was like that. And so, I mean, how many, you said hundreds of thousands, people doing it daily.
Yeah.
And it was because you had such an amazing brand that people just wanted to do it. And I think because it kept coming into your inbox and you said, and you did it, people did it. And it's what I keep saying about loyalty is you never know what crazy stuff is going to work. And it's often just that little bit of inspiration or trying crazy stuff that finds these little gems of, and this and that. I keep using it today as it's a perfect example of how you can engage customers with just nonsense. I mean, I don't know how you would use red or blue, you know.
It's something that we're looking at now, though, is like how do we build an onboarding experience for customers that is really engaging but captures really brilliant data that we can then use in the experience. Yeah. And we are going back to the this and that tactics as a case study of how we did it really well back in the day.
Because I was working with a football club actually recently, and we resurrecting this or that in nonsense questions about football. Well, we basically said two different players from two different eras, and then just saying this one or that one, and they've loved it, and they're it's just the same idea, but it's just so simple. The simplest things are often really engaging. Yeah. And Simon, anything from you? Any ones from you?
Yeah, talking about the less frequent customer, one of the case studies, and we went for dinner with Chewy, Western Region, one of our clients. Carlene, she's no longer here, but we worked together on one of the cases that's in the boxes. Their retention rate is 30 to 40% over a 2-year span. So that's actually pretty low. And so one of their challenges is to increase that retention rate. And key is capturing first-party data. So maybe this or that could be a nice way for them to stay relevant post that first travel. And so I think that's a key challenge, is capturing the data and then staying top of mind, because if you're buying infrequently, when that next moment of purchase is unpredictable. It's anywhere within the next 2 years. So that's a huge challenge for them. And the way they're going to tackle it is to drive people to the My TUI account. And the way we play a role in there is we're one of the rewards that's hidden in that account. So getting them to open the account, redeem that first gift, is a way for them to stay relevant for a longer period. And
the long tail is really, really important to brands. I mean, how many here have read Byron Sharp's book, How Brands Grow? One. Well, two. Yeah, two. If you're going to do anything this year, read that book, because if Reicheld's book was, how many people have read Reicheld's book? Don't, it's boring. Did you get to the end? You got to the end. It's lovely. There's 2 really good graphs in it. The rest is awful. But how many people's job here was dependent on hit that book? And you should all put your hands up, because Reicheld's book from Bain Consulting led to the launch of American Airlines program, led to the launch of British Airways program across here. So almost everyone in here owes a living to that book. And Byron Sharp's book, if that book was the Bible, then Byron Sharp's book's the Quran. Because he sort of says we don't really, he says he's got a chapter that says loyalty doesn't work. And I think if we're all here, we all know loyalty works because we work in industry. So we've all measured it. I'm sure everyone here has been involved in that. But have a read of it, because I think he slightly misunderstands what we're doing. But one of his main purposes in his main theories is that loyalty doesn't come from, you don't create a loyalty program from your most engaged customers. You create loyalty from your occasional users, which are just the ones that we're talking about here. So the ones that buy occasionally. I mean, Phil's here somewhere. We've got a graph. We've got a slide we push out a lot of the time, which has a iceberg where it says, you know, you can see your most valuable customers and you see them regularly, but how do you engage your less valuable customers? And Virgin Red's a perfect example. And this or that's, again, a perfect example of that, because it's free. And hundreds of thousands of people are doing it. But it's hard to find those diamonds, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah. So are there any particular channels that we think need more attention than, you know, touch points that need attention here, especially for those less frequent flyers? You're nodding your head, Joel.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about airline, I think it's the onboard experience, because I think we do a pretty good job actually of engaging customers beforehand and at the airport with, you know, lounge pass, etc. But on board, there's not a lot that goes on, particularly for the less frequent flyers, to enhance the experience. If you're thinking about, you know, other areas of travel like hotel, for instance, I think at the point of transaction, there's not a lot of instant gratification there, and I think that's where, you know, we can really start to focus in more about how we reward that moment. Because loyalty is all about moments. I think
it's easy as well. It should be. It should be easy in that you've got the people there and they're available. I mean, if anyone's dealt with airline staff, well, we've all dealt with airline staff here, haven't we? So we know how hard that is. But it should be. You've got the captive audience there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You've got a captive audience and you've got a really magical moment, right? That's people go on holidays to make these memories. And I think what Virgin Atlantic did very well was to very, very low cost have things like the Fab Ice Lolly on board. And
it's really amazing.
The little ice and the little love hearts that they give out as the ear-popping devices. And they cost nothing, but they're so memorable and so talkable that they're still living on in people's memory today.
And do they still offer you to steal the salt and pepper pots?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a whole cupboard full.
Which is just nice. But again, there are things that perhaps a British Airways brand couldn't get away with, but the Virgin brand can get away with.
Indeed.
And I think it's those little moments that people, has everyone heard the term joyalty? You know, it's those little things that give you a bit of a smile, that make you think, yeah, that's really nice, you know. And again, there are other examples. We've been on many things where we talked about examples of this joyalty.
Joyalty, yeah. An example in airline that comes to mind is Alaska Airlines. They give you a piece of chocolate. And what sets it apart, this chocolate, unlike the one I give you, is that it's tailored to the destination. So it's local produce. And that, I think, is a great way to, you know, give people something which puts a smile on their face, a little token of appreciation, and still has the connection with the flight, the destination. So I like that in terms of an example of joyalty.
There's another one that I really like about example of joyalty, where a friend of mine bought an electric bike, and you had to make this bike. You had to put it together in your house. And there was one particularly difficult bit where you had to get the brake at the front was also part of the propulsion thing. It was really hard, and he ended up with barked knuckles, and it took a long time to get this thing through. And then afterwards, the next instruction was you had to open this little cardboard box, and in there was a party whistle, you know. and he phoned me and then sent me a text with this on it, and he had no need to, right? And it's because what they did is they made they recognised a very difficult part in their journey that customers had to do, and then celebrated it by this thing, which completely took away from the fact that he had bark knuckles and he felt it was a pain. So I think that it's really nice if you think about your customer journey. You can find these moments where you can do those. And the Virgin Atlantic Love Heart is a perfect example. That must cost them pennies, right?
It does, and we've got a really nice one on Virgin Voyages as well, which is Shake for Champagne. So you do everything on the Voyages app. And when you want some champagne, you shake it, and then the champagne trolley arrives, and it's like magic. So obviously that's my most favourite feature on Virgin Voyages when I'm on there. But it's incredible. It's those little moments which, again, don't cost very much, but get people talking.
And so, are there any other experiences where channel you think becomes? So we talked about Wi-Fi, airline Wi-Fi. Is anyone doing anything there that you think might be interesting for engaging customers?
I think Delta are doing, I was talking to the New York Times, I'm not sure if he's still here. Yeah, you are, well done. I'm talking to the New York Times, and they're partnering with Delta to bring Wordle and other games from the New York Times to that portal. And Wordle was played by millions and millions of people, and again, it's just making that airline experience a little bit more joyful at that point in time.
There's another really good example that I love is, has anyone seen the Dishoom loyalty program in action? Has anyone seen that? So what they do at Dishoom is, if you're a regular customer at Dishoom, they give you a keyring, okay? Or you can ask for a keyring if you're not a regular. So there is a bit of science in it, okay? And then what they then do is if you're in the restaurant between certain days, so it's not Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it's certain days. If at the end of the meal you show them your keyring and you roll a dice and you roll a 6, you get your meal for free. And what's really cool about that is no loyalty program would get anywhere if they offered a 16% discount, right? But yet, and there's the theatre of it happening in the restaurant, where it's in front of everyone, and they have a big table, and you throw the dice, and it throws a 6, and everyone cheers, and then people say, well, why don't we do that? You know, what? And then they say, well, I want the keyring. And it's a beautiful example of just how, again, for little cost, you can do something that's very engaging, that's just what we do every day. It's engaging human beings rather than thinking too transactionally. I love it. It's a great example.
I think Nectar's got a good one as well, which I always get sucked into, which is after you've purchased, and there's that little scratcher that gets sent to you, and there's also a button that you can press that reveals the scratcher, but I'm there like a mad woman scratching away every time. You only get 10 points or whatever, but it's actually just that fun of doing it, isn't it?
And the market's been changed in the UK by Lidl Plus, so I go out all the time and ask people who their favourite loyalty programme is, and nowadays, particularly, Lidl Plus is coming up all the time. And that's a program with no points at all. It's all about experiences. And they try to bring to life the kind of middle aisle you get in Lidl, which my dad, every time I go and see my dad, he's bought some other stuff from this middle aisle. I mean, why he needs a ski suit when he's 84, I don't know. But, but you know, he clearly needed it at the time. And again, it's beautiful, isn't it? And it's because of that brand, they have the ability to be able to do that. And again, with you've worked with booze brands and all sorts of brands where it lends itself to what you do.
Yeah, true. Nice example is engaging fans of football teams, for example. A lot of brands are trying to associate that as through sponsorships, but celebrating your team winning championship is also a nice way to hook your brand to that emotion. And why not print photos of the most epic moments of the year, receive them at home, and yeah, it's always funded by the brand, handed out by the club, and uploaded or enriched with personal data from the fan or the consumer.
Yeah, nice.
I think another really good example, and it probably says a lot about my diet, but is KFC. And their whole program is gamified. So when you make a purchase, you get I guess a sort of token to hit a fairground, I don't know what they're called, the bell, things with the bell on the top. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. If you win, you win free food. And it drives you in for that next purchase. But it's a really engaging way at quite a low cost to get customers back in.
Yeah, the one with Lidl actually, they did a promotion where you win a bakery product, and that went gangbusters. And it's just a little bakery product, right? It must cost some pennies, really. Yeah. And the other one I tweeted out today, or put out on LinkedIn today, was my mother-in-law this week got a plaque like this big that they've put on the mantelpiece from the Caravan and Motorhome Club, because they've been there 50 years, and it's really a prized possession of theirs, you know. And I think how many people here of loyalty programs will reward customers for their longevity, not just in something physical, in something like, you know, thank you for being with us for 25 years. How many? Oh, Virgin used to. Do they still do the Virgin Atlantic used to do that? They used to give them it was bakery products or something, because it was a nightmare to manage.
I'm not sure about that.
It was donuts, and it was on a certain, anyway, it was some certain anniversary used to send them out, and it was a nightmare, but customers loved it.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's the ABC of gifting: anniversary, birthday, and Christmas.
Yeah.
These moments, I think, are paramount. And the anniversary, 5-year, 10-year, with the brand, so often overlooked by loyalty programs.
And they love it. I mean, customers genuinely feel rewarded for it, and it costs nothing. Well, it doesn't cost nothing, but it's, you know, for the amount of emotional benefit you get back, it doesn't. So, can anyone think of any ones that work less well?
Well, I think with all of these things, right, you have to get the fundamentals right before you can afford yourself to play in these more, you know, gamified spaces. So I think with any program, if you don't have the sort of quality and range of products, the ease of experience, a clear and compelling value proposition, and represent good value for customers, then whatever sprinkles you put on top fall a bit flat. So I guess the sort of model that we look at is making sure, although there's still work to do, that the fundamentals are in place. And then what are the brand lifts? So where can we take really boring elements of the journey, whether it's T's and C's or in-flight videos or whatever, and make them a little bit more special than what you'd see elsewhere? And then where do you have the signature moments where your brand can really stand out? And that's like the fabs. That's the shake for champagnes. And you don't need a lot of them, but you need a couple that create talkability. But I think where companies fall down is where they rely too heavily on the gamified elements, maybe like we did with Virgin Red 1.0, and forget to sort of have the basics either from a commercial perspective or just from a customer mechanics perspective. So you can have all the confetti you like, but if you don't have the basics in place, it's quite challenging.
Yeah. Joel, can you think of any bit?
Well, I think you've got to do it at the right time, right? I think trying to engage with customers, whether it's through gamification or experiences or whatever it is, has to be at a moment where the customer is actually willing to engage with you. And I think that's where a lot of brands fall down. I'm not going to mention any names in case.
Oh, go on.
In case there's potential customers in the room, and I don't want to offend them. But I think it's got to be at the right time, and I think it's got to be simple to engage with as well. So often, you know, there's a lot of hoops to jump through for these things, and I think if you make it too complex, customers are just going to be turned off by it.
Yeah.
What I heard a couple of times from clients in different industry, telco, is that they try to give a purely rational reward, a voucher of 10 euros, and they were surprised to see, for them, 10 euros over such a base is a huge gift, but nobody cares if it's just below that, like if it's below that 10 euro point. They had very little adoption of those vouchers. So it comes to show again that people are emotional, and you can get away with something that's smaller, more tailored, but it has that emotional component, and costs you less at the end of the day than a pure transactional reward. So
yeah, I agree with that. And I think I know where I'm going to break my own rule here and talk about transactions. But you can be too transactional in a loyalty program. I'll give you a perfect example. We were. I'm going to talk about people that might be here. We had a banking partner that might have been behind on a minimum commitment. We've all been there. So they had a load of money to spend, and they needed to get that money out of the door. And their theory was that the reason why people weren't redeeming in the loyalty program, weren't engaged in the loyalty program, is they didn't have enough points to redeem. So what he said, they took a sample of the lowest engaged customers, and they said, we're going to give you a load of miles that get you to the lowest possible redemption at loyalty program. It was the worst performing a campaign I have ever been involved in. In fact, the control group performed better than the group they sent the points to, and they weren't sent the points.
Yeah.
So basically there was an evidence that no one took it up, and those people certainly didn't change their behavior. And it's because I think that customers can see when you're having an emotional engagement with them, but they can also see when they're being conned. And if a customer's joined a program because they want to go to Australia to see their friend, and then you give them enough to redeem to go to Manchester, they're probably going to hate you for it rather than thank you for it, right?
We had something similar with on the train ticketing platform that we run. We gifted all new people enough points to get a coffee, but they just cashed out on that coffee as quickly as possible, and then just wasn't really engaging in the currency. So I think you just have to be careful around how you use points to incentivize behavior, because it doesn't always go the way that you think it might.
No, exactly. So I don't know how much time. Is there any time monitor here? Okay. So the last 5 minutes, can we just talk about 3 pieces of advice you'd give people about thinking about improving their travel experience with things that, I mean, you can go into points, but things that, what do you think are the 3 things that you would do?
Well, for me, it's outside of gamification, to be honest. I think going back to the fundamentals on the travel experience side, I think there's a massive opportunity to. I saw a piece of evidence yesterday from Bloomberg that 80% of travellers with autistic children are sort of opting out travelling altogether. And that's representing 25 to 35 million people that have autism that are being completely overlooked by the travel sector. And I think, we can put all the bells and whistles on these things, but we have to get the fundamentals right and treat customers and meet them wherever they are in their life stage with the appropriate thing at that moment. So that might be gamification, it might be playfulness, but it might be actually making that experience really, really good for that customer with that really difficult circumstance that they're navigating. It's that lady's point earlier, having nappies and wet wipes in a airport is more valuable to certain individuals than having something that's quite gamified. So I think for me, the travel experience needs to be looked at holistically, and you have to make sure that you are getting those basics right and understanding where your customer is at throughout the life cycle, because not everybody is the same, as we've heard a lot today. So gamification will work for some, it won't work for others.
Yeah, no, exactly. What will yours be, Joel?
Yeah, no, I think for me the key is make it simple, and I think in travel we're particularly guilty of this, making our programs really complicated and hard to engage with. And linked to what you said, I think once you've got the simple foundations in place, then you can start to build on it with bells and whistles, and customers can choose how they want to engage with those things. But the fundamental of the program needs to be really simple, really easy to engage with, and drive real value.
For me, the main thing that stood out today was learning how many loyalty programs people are involved in. I think I heard 16, but they only remember 4 of those. And there's a lot of work done by Charlie Hills and Van de Connect on mapping that, on how many loyalty programs. So it varies across markets, but it's a lot. So that means that more loyalty programs there, differentiation becomes extremely important. So I would like to make the case for joyalty, the term you coined. And
I didn't coin it.
Well, it's Adam Posner, right?
Well, and he passes it on to someone else. So.
Yeah, right. and
he's got the tattoo though.
True. And referring back to Byron Sharp, he makes the case in the book as well. That's another chapter, that we are all emotionally distracted viewers. So remembering only 4 out of 16 loyalty programs sort of stalemates that point, I think. So differentiation and adding an extra spark to your loyalty program is, I think, a key piece of advice.
And the only one I'd add is when I started my career, I was at Shell UK, and they made you go and spend 2 weeks on site every year. Now, I never did the 2 weeks, but we spend days on site. And it's really, really important to find the time in your diary to sit with the call center and to go to the airports and to sit on the aircraft and to talk to the staff, because they will tell you stuff and you will learn things you never knew, right? Because the only strategy a customer sees is execution. And so, and it's always that human element that has the big difference. And if I could just finish tonight, if you could just, I'd like to read a bit of a chapter, a little bit of something here from Kurt Vonnegut, who's one of my favorite authors. And it's just about the importance of human interaction in life. And I could just read you this, if you just bear with me for a second. Oh, she says, well, you're not a poor man. Why don't you go online and buy 100 envelopes and put them in your closet? So I pretend not to hear her. I pretend not to my wife all the time, but never mind. And I go out and get the envelope because I'm going to have a hell of a good time in the process buying one envelope. I meet a lot of people. I see some great-looking babies, and a fire engine goes by, and I give them thumbs up. And I ask the woman, what kind of dog is that? And I don't know. The moral of the story is, we're on Earth to fart around. And of course, the computers will do us out of that sooner or later. And what the computer people don't realize or don't care about is that we're dancing animals. You know, we love to move around, and it's like we're not supposed to dance at all anymore. Isn't that beautiful? So just remember, your customers are dancing animals, and we need to engage with them. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.